Welcome back, everybody. Today we're diving into a story that's, I think, captivated a lot of people, historians and conspiracy theorists alike, for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
The mystery of the man in the iron mask.
Hmm.
And it's a story that I think everybody kind of knows, at least the broad strokes of it, but it's one that I find really fascinating. And when we were talking about doing this deep dive, I was really excited to kind of get into the weeds with it.
I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
So imagine this. You're a prisoner. You're locked away in some of France's most notorious prisons.
Right.
Your face hidden behind a mask. Your true identity, a state secret.
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of like an Alexandre Dumas novel, right?
It really does. It's a story that really kind of blurs the line between fact and fiction.
Yeah.
But I think what makes it so fascinating is how this one figure, this enigmatic figure,
Yeah.
really reveals so much about the anxieties and the power struggles of 17th century France.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a world that was ruled by the Sun King, Louis XIV. You know, and I think when we're talking about Louis XIV, it's not hard to imagine this kind of story coming out of his reign because he was so powerful and really ruled with an iron fist. And it was really about presenting this image of strength and kind of invincibility.
Right, and I think you kind of hit on it there, this idea of image, and that I think is really central to the story of the man in the iron mask. Because to understand him, we have to understand the world that he lived in,
Right.
this world of Louis XIV. It was a world of opulent palaces, Versailles,
Of course.
powerful nobles, all vying for the king's favor. And really it was a system where the king could imprison anyone
Right.
he deemed a threat
Without a trial, without explanation.
without a trial, without any explanation. Just
Ah.
with the stroke of his pen, he could make you disappear.
Yeah, you're talking about those infamous letters, the lettre de cachet,
Exactly.
right? One letter and poof, off to prison, possibly for life.
Exactly. And so this system of absolute power, I think, is really key to understanding how someone could just vanish from society.
Mhm.
Their identity, erase their existence, only whispered about, in hushed tones.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our masked man.
Right.
And we don't have diaries. We
Right.
don't have confessions from this time period, but we do have these three really crucial pieces of evidence
Okay.
that point to his existence, like these puzzle pieces kind of scattered across time.
Okay, so let's start piecing together this puzzle then.
All right.
What's our first clue?
So our story begins in 1687 in the Fortress of Exiles,
Okay.
high in the French Alps. And we have this account from a Jansenist bishop,
Okay.
a religious figure who opposed some of the king's policies, and he records seeing a masked prisoner being transported under heavy guard.
Mm.
Now, keep in mind, this isn't just any prisoner.
Right.
This prisoner is being moved in a sedan chair draped in black cloth,
Wow.
forced to wear a mask even during the journey.
Why all the secrecy? I mean, it's not like anybody up in the Yonks is going to recognize him.
That's the question, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
the question that's fueled centuries of speculation.
Right.
But this prisoner was considered so dangerous, his identity so sensitive,
Yeah.
that even a glimpse of his face was forbidden.
Wow.
And he was being taken down to this island prison of Sainte Marguerite.
Okay.
This place was designed to hold the king's most dangerous enemies,
Yeah.
virtually no chance of escape.
Yeah. And who was the warden, the person in charge of this fortress, this island prison?
Right.
I mean, I have to imagine it was somebody Louis XIV entrusted explicitly.
Right. His name was Mine de Saint-Marc, and he plays a pivotal role in this whole affair.
Oh, wow.
He was responsible for several high-security prisons,
Huh?
and was entrusted with guarding some of the king's most sensitive prisoners.
Sensitive.
Sensitive meaning those who knew too much,
Yeah.
those who could potentially threaten the Sun King's carefully crafted image,
Right. Right.
perhaps both. And this brings us to our second clue.
Okay.
So fast forward 12 years to 1698.
All right.
Saint-Marc is now the governor of the Bastille,
Oh, wow.
the most infamous prison in all of France.
Yeah.
And guess who he brings with him?
Our masked mystery man, of course.
You got it.
Yeah.
The prison register clearly documents the arrival of this unnamed prisoner from Sainte Marguerite,
Mhm.
still masked his identity, shrouded in secrecy, and he kind of disappears from the records again until 1703.
When he dies in the Bastille.
Sadly.
Yeah.
He's buried under a false name, M. de Marchel.
Okay.
Another piece of the puzzle that has fueled endless speculation.
Right.
And what's interesting is the burial record mentions a mask of black velvet.
Oh, velvet.
Not the iron mask that's become so legendary.
So velvet instead of iron.
Right.
It almost makes me think that somebody was trying to downplay his importance or maybe even hide the truth further.
Right. And this discrepancy has led some to believe that there were actually multiple masked prisoners, each with their own secrets to protect.
Wow.
And then, of course, we have to talk about the influence of a certain famous writer.
Well, you're talking about Voltaire, right? I mean, he was imprisoned in the Bastille himself.
He was.
Right.
He was. And during his time there, he picked up stories about the masked man from guards and other prisoners. And, of course, Voltaire was a master storyteller.
Right, known for his sharp wit and his penchant for the dramatic.
Exactly.
I could see how maybe he embellished a few details.
He certainly knew how to craft a compelling narrative.
Right.
It was Voltaire who popularized the phrase "the man in the iron mask,"
Wow.
and really added those dramatic flourishes about the steel mask
Right.
and the prisoner receiving special treatment or unusual respect from the king's ministers.
So we have a mysterious masked prisoner,
Right.
a king obsessed with control.
Yes.
And this famous writer kind of turning the whole story into a legend.
Exactly.
Where do we even begin to unravel this web of secrets?
Well, I think we have to start with the theories.
Okay.
And trust me, there are plenty of those, and we'll dive into some of the most popular ones, separating the plausible from the outlandish when we come back. I think what's so fascinating is how many of the theories around the man in the iron mask revolve around this idea that he was someone important, someone with a direct connection to Louis XIV.
You mean someone who posed a threat to the Sun
Well,
King's power?
yeah.
Someone whose very existence could shake the foundations of his reign?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and let's start with perhaps the most famous theory, the one popularized by Voltaire himself.
Yeah.
That the masked man was Louis XIV's illegitimate older brother.
Oh, wow.
So the story goes that Louis XIII, Anne of Austria,
Right.
Louis XIV's parents, had trouble conceiving an heir.
Mm-hmm.
And this led to whispers of a secret child
Right.
hidden away to ensure a smooth succession when Louis XIV finally arrived.
So a potential scandal that could have undermined Louis XIV's claim to the throne.
Right.
I can see why he'd want to keep that under wraps.
Mm.
But wouldn't there be some record of this older brother? Some whisper in the annals of history?
That's the problem with a lot of these theories, is that they rely on these whispers and rumors passed down through the years,
Right.
making them really difficult to verify.
Yeah.
But they do tap into the anxieties of the time,
Right.
this fear of a disputed succession, the potential for chaos if the wrong person were to claim the throne.
And speaking of disputed successions and the wrong person claiming the throne, what about the theory that the masked man was Louis XIV's twin?
Right.
I mean, that's straight out of a Shakespearean drama.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
This theory was championed by the philosopher Denis Diderot,
Okay.
and it suggests that Anne of Austria actually gave birth to twins.
Wow.
But the second born, considered the elder by some traditions, was hidden away to prevent a power struggle.
I mean, two identical kings vying for the same throne.
Right.
It's a recipe for disaster. But how could such a secret be kept? Surely someone in the royal court would have known.
Again, we're dealing with a lot of hearsay and conjecture here.
Right.
But it's interesting to consider what such a secret would say about the nature of absolute power.
Yeah.
The lengths to which a ruler might go to maintain stability, even at the cost of a brother's freedom.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. Okay, so we have a potential older brother and a possible twin.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other royal contenders in this lineup of suspects?
Not exactly royal, but certainly colorful,
Oh.
is the theory put forth by Lord Quixwood,
Okay.
a British politician known for his rather imaginative interpretations of history.
Okay.
He claimed that the masked man was actually Louis XIV's father.
Wait, his father? How was that even possible? Louis XIII was the undisputed father of Louis XIV.
Well, according to Quixwood, Cardinal Richelieu, the powerful advisor to Louis XIII,
Right.
orchestrated this rather elaborate scheme.
Okay.
He allegedly hired a quote-unquote stud
Oh, my.
to impregnate Anne of Austria, ensuring the birth of an heir and securing his own influence over the French throne.
So a secret royal baby daddy. This sounds more like a soap opera plot than historical fact.
It does, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
and the story gets even wilder.
Okay.
Quixwood claimed that this supposed stud
Yeah.
later tried to blackmail Louis XIV,
Oh, wow.
leading to his imprisonment and the mask.
It seems like some people just let their imaginations run wild when it comes to the Man in the Iron Mask.
It's true, but there's absolutely no evidence
Yeah.
to support any of this.
But I suppose that's part of the allure of this mystery, isn't it? I mean, it invites us to fill in the blanks,
Absolutely.
to imagine the most dramatic, the most scandalous scenarios.
Yeah,
But to get closer to the truth, I think we need to move beyond speculation
right?
and look at the historical record.
Yeah,
And, when we were talking about the burial record earlier,
right.
that name Martial,
Yeah.
could that be a clue to his real identity?
It's possible, and for a while it was considered a very promising lead. But extensive research has turned up nothing.
Okay.
And with the release of the Bastille's records after the French Revolution,
Right.
scholars have been able to thoroughly debunk this theory.
So another dead end.
It seems so.
Are there any other prisoners from that time period that might fit the profile, who were held in the same prisons as our masked man?
There is one intriguing possibility: Count Ercole Mattioli,
Okay.
an Italian diplomat who double-crossed Louis XIV.
A double agent. That sounds like dangerous business. What exactly did he do to incur the Sun King's wrath?
Well, Mattioli was working for the French spy service, but was caught playing both sides, selling secrets to other European powers.
Wow.
And Louis XIV, furious at this betrayal, had Mattioli kidnapped and imprisoned under a false name.
Okay, yeah. I can see why he'd be considered a suspect. Was he held in the same prisons as our masked man, Pignerol, Sainte Marguerite, the Bastille?
He was indeed.
Right.
Mattioli was initially imprisoned at Pignerol, where,
Right.
if you recall, that finance minister
Oh, yeah.
who inspired Louis the Forceps to build Versailles was also held?
You're talking about Nicolas Fouquet.
Yes.
Right. The one who threw that lavish party that was a little too impressive for the king's liking?
The very same. And remember, Saint-Mars was the warden there at the time.
Oh, right, right.
And Mattioli was later moved to Sainte Marguerite.
Just like the masked man.
Just like the masked man.
Mhm.
There are even accounts of him boasting about possessing dangerous secrets
Wow.
that could damage Louis XIV's reputation.
So motive and opportunity. Did Saint-Mars ever mention Mattioli in any of his letters?
He did, and for a long time Mattioli was considered the most likely candidate.
Oh, okay.
But recently discovered letters from Saint-Mars actually contradict this theory.
Really? How so? If they were both in the same prisons, wouldn't that strengthen the connection?
You'd think so, but the timing doesn't quite line up.
Okay.
These new letters suggest that Mattioli likely died before the masked man was transferred to the Bastille.
Mhm.
It seems our mystery man outlived this particular suspect.
Okay, so Mattioli is out. Before we get to the leading contender, though, were there any other notable theories about the masked man's identity?
Believe it or not, there were even theories suggesting he was English.
English. Now, that's a twist. Who are the suspects across the channel?
Well, one theory, though, far-fetched,
Okay.
suggested the prisoner was the son of Oliver Cromwell.
The Lord Protector of England.
Huh.
Wouldn't he be a bit too old to fit the timeline of our masked man?
Exactly, and Cromwell's sons were either dead or in exile during this period.
Okay.
Another popular theory pointed to the Duke of Monmouth,
Okay.
the illegitimate son of Charles II.
Ah, the Duke of Monmouth. Didn't he lead a rebellion against James II?
He did, and it ended quite badly for him.
Right.
He was publicly executed in 1685, so
Yeah.
clearly he couldn't be our masked man.
All right, so the English connection seems like a dead end.
Mm.
But if he wasn't a disgruntled relative,
Yeah.
a double-crossing spy, or even English, who was this man?
The answer, surprisingly, might be far less glamorous than we've imagined.
Wait, you mean all these theories about royal scandals and international espionage might lead to a commoner?
The most likely candidate, based on years of research
Yeah.
and newly uncovered documents, is Eustache Dogger.
Eustache Dogger. That name doesn't exactly scream international man of mystery. Who was he?
He was a valet,
A valet.
arrested in Calais in 1669.
That's a far cry from a king or a cardinal. What could a simple servant possibly have done to warrant such extreme secrecy?
That's the question that has puzzled historians for years.
Right.
But the timing of his arrest and the location, Calais, directly across from Dover, England,
Right.
connect him to a pivotal moment in European history, the secret negotiations between Louis XIV and Charles II of England.
You're talking about the Treaty of Dover.
Exactly.
Right. The one where Charles II secretly agreed to help Louis XIV fight the Dutch
Yeah.
in exchange for, well, a lot of money and a promise to convert to Catholicism.
Exactly. This was a highly sensitive diplomatic affair
Yeah.
full of backroom deals and clandestine meetings.
Right.
And Dogger's presence in Calais at that exact time suggests that he may have been entangled in these dealings,
Okay.
perhaps as a servant to someone involved in the negotiations.
So he might have been a fly on the wall during these secret talks, privy to information that could have blown the whole thing wide open.
That's certainly a possibility. But here's what really solidifies Dogger's connection to the Man in the Iron Mask.
Okay.
Prison records from Pignerol confirm that Dogger was made to work as a valet while imprisoned.
Wait, if he was someone truly important, someone with dangerous secrets, surely they wouldn't have made him a servant.
Right.
Wouldn't that put him in a position to overhear even more sensitive information?
Precisely. It strongly suggests that Dogger was, in fact, a valet by profession, which makes the reason for his mask, his decades of imprisonment, all the more perplexing.
So we may have finally unmasked the man, but the mystery only deepens. If Eustache Dogger was just a valet, what could he have possibly known or witnessed to warrant such extreme measures?
That's the question we'll be exploring when we return. What secrets could a seemingly insignificant servant possess
Right.
that could threaten the most powerful king in Europe?
It's almost ironic, isn't it? I mean, we've spent centuries trying to uncover the identity of the Man in the Iron Mask. And now that we think we have a likely candidate, it just makes the mystery even deeper.
Right.
If Eustache Dogger was just a valet, why all this secrecy?
Yeah.
What could he have possibly known to warrant a lifetime behind bars hidden from the world?
It really does kind of throw a wrench in our in our preconceived notions about this case. You know,
Yeah.
we've explored all these theories about disgruntled relatives and double-crossing spies and even illegitimate fathers, but
Right.
a simple valet.
Yeah.
It kind of forces us to re-examine the whole story, to look for clues maybe in the shadows and the whispers that might have been overlooked before.
So let's assume for a moment that Dogger was indeed just a valet who stumbled into the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
What could a servant have possibly witnessed or overheard
Yeah.
during those Treaty of Dover negotiations that would make him a threat to Louis XIV?
Well, remember, this treaty wasn't just about military alliances.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a tangled web of secrets,
Right.
including Charles II's potential conversion to Catholicism.
Right. Which was a huge deal.
A move that could have rocked England and all of Europe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if Dogger overheard something about this, even a snippet of a conversation,
Right.
it could have been enough to seal his fate.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being that valet serving drinks, emptying ashtrays while these powerful kings and their ministers are plotting and scheming all around you. You catch a phrase, a name, a date,
Right.
and suddenly your life is in danger.
It's a chilling thought.
Yeah, it really is. It's almost Shakespearean, this idea that a lowly servant could hold the key to such powerful secrets.
And let's not forget, Louis XIV was obsessed with controlling his image.
Right.
He was the Sun King, the embodiment of absolute power, and any whiff of scandal, any suggestion that he was being manipulated by a foreign power could damage his reputation, undermine his authority.
So even if Dogger's knowledge was relatively insignificant,
Right.
the mere fact that he knew something he shouldn't, that he could potentially spread rumors or gossip, that would be enough to make him a liability in the eyes of Louis XIV.
Exactly. We have to remember that this was a time when information was power.
Right.
Controlling the flow of information,
Yeah.
suppressing anything that could threaten the established order was paramount.
Right.
And Dogger, even as a humble valet, represented a potential leak in that system of control.
It's almost like the Streisand effect, centuries before the internet.
Right.
The more you try to suppress something, the more attention it attracts, the more people become curious.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to the question of the mask.
Right.
If Dogger was such a threat, why not just silence him permanently?
Right.
Why go through all the trouble of masking him, moving him from prison to prison?
That is perhaps the most perplexing aspect of this whole affair.
Yeah.
And the frustrating thing is we have no definitive answers.
Right.
Samar, in all of his letters, never explicitly states why the man was masked.
So we're left to speculate,
Yeah.
to piece together clues from the historical record. And perhaps to acknowledge that some secrets just remain buried in the past.
Right.
But even without knowing the exact reason for the mask, I think we can still glean some insights from this mystery.
Absolutely.
The story of the man in the iron mask, regardless of his true identity, I think really sheds light on the nature of power.
Yeah.
The lengths to which rulers will go to maintain control, to silence dissenting voices, to preserve their image.
And it reminds us that history is often written by the victors.
Right.
That there are always these hidden stories, these whispers in the shadows that challenge the official narrative.
Even a seemingly insignificant figure like Eustache Dogger can become a symbol of resistance,
Right.
a reminder that truth has a way of finding its way to the surface, even if it takes centuries.
And who knows, maybe someday a new document will be discovered.
Right.
A long-lost letter or diary that will finally reveal the true reason for the mask,
Right.
for Dogger's decades of imprisonment.
Right.
But until then, the man in the iron mask will continue to captivate our imaginations, reminding us that history's full of mysteries,
Yeah.
of stories waiting to be uncovered.
And that's what makes history so fascinating, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The unanswered questions, the tantalizing clues that lead us down these unexpected paths.
Yeah.
So to all of our listeners out there, we leave you with this. What do you think was the reason for the mask? What secrets could a valet possess that would threaten the Sun King himself? Share your thoughts in the comments. And as always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into history's most intriguing mysteries.